What's up, family? What's up, family? I am a determined black man, John Jay, and as usual, I'm determined to reach at least one someone that's out there listening to the sounds of my voice, if not each and every one of you all. Hey, on today, wanted to briefly discuss with you all. Basically taking precedent over everything that's going on in the world right now. And that is the situation that's developing in the Middle East over there in Gaza. Yeah, I want to get back on that. Let's talk about that for a second. Palestinians and the Israelis. And let's also cross-reference that back to the U.S. and what's been going on in the U.S. with the protests. So I'm not sure if any of you all have been made aware, but check this out.
Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate MIT's code of conduct or rules regarding bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
If targeted at individuals, not making public statements.
Yes or no? Calling for the genocide of Jews does not constitute bullying and harassment?
I have not heard calling for the genocide for Jews on our campus.
But you've heard chants for intifada.
I've heard chants, which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context, when calling for the elimination of the Jewish people.
So those would not be according to the MIT's code of conduct or rules?
That would be investigated as harassment if pervasive and severe.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
I am asking specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context. That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill.
So I think that some of them jumped. The first president said, well, nobody's making those statements in the first place, but here's what our policies are. Fair enough. The next two should have just said that, but instead they basically, what seemed to be happening was they were assuming that by genocidal statements, I think that Jews shouldn't exist or whatever the genocidal statement was, that Stefanik was alluding to statements like, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free, which obviously there's a debate about whether or not that means exterminating all Jews or whether that means from the river to the sea, Palestinians and Jewish people, Arabs and Jews, should have equal rights under the law, which does not currently exist in Israel. And so I think that they were saying, they were wanting to resist validating the idea that those genocidal statements were being made in the first place. And in the same way that there's that famous example of, if you're asked, why are you beating your wife? Even if you've never beat your wife, that being out there creates a kind of reality that people don't necessarily want to validate. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, isn't it ironic that the U.S. called in, Congress called in the presidents to these three schools, these three major PWIs, Harvard, MIT, University of Pennsylvania, and the vigorous question, as though they don't even understand the First Amendment. Now, for those of you all that have been awakened, that have been woke for the last 2-3 years, and you've noticed that there has been a tremendous ploy on the freedom of speech. There has been a tremendous effort to limit the freedom of speech. And if you notice, and you'll notice even here, when the Congresswoman asks, or when any of them asks these presidents questions about the protests that have taken place on their college campuses that they preside over. The question is so vigorous, it's almost like they're being interrogated by the FBI. And it's like almost the same thing that they're trying to implicate them for doing, they're doing to them. You bullying. You're basically trying to force them to say that those campuses have policy that restricts the freedom of speech. Basically is what it is. Because what if you paid attention, then you notice that all three of these presidents that's on this panel, they all reply with the same reply, basically in so many words. They all have the same reply. It's because across the board, most of these major universities are in alliance with the amendments, in the First Amendment, protected speech. And so that's why, and it behooves me because these laws are laws. And so it's funny to me that even though Harvard is a law school, these schools have law students, and these are mostly lawyers. These presidents are lawyers, basically. So they're answering you in the most politically correct way. And so they're being drilled by people that are possibly lawyers, congressmen, that set the rules and know the rules. They know the amendment. They know, the great line, the great area between, what could be deemed as acts of terrorism or as freedom of speech. And so, like they say, until that speech becomes an actual action, then they can't the entire group of protesters, just no matter what they say. You know what I'm saying? I know it's a lot of gray area there, but these people understand the rules. They know the amendment, and they know that you have a right to protest. As long as it's peaceful, ain't nobody getting hurt. Now, if these presidents were upholding Palestinians, actually putting their hands on Jewish students or Israelis or anybody, in the name of Palestine or Hamas, then yeah, that would be much reasoning for these presidents to take disciplinary action immediately. And, that would call for them to answer it with a yay, more so than a nay or the straddle the fence. So what they're trying to do is they're really just trying to be politically correct. They're trying to answer the questions without stepping on the toes of the university and or its donors and alumni, as well as the Congress people that are drilling them, that are questioning them. And it's funny to me that every time it comes to a certain group of people, if anybody speaks a certain type of way, then we immediately under scrutiny. We immediately getting called for us to be fired or for us to resign, And I already felt this way a couple of months ago when I learned that Harvard's president was the first black female president. I said, I guarantee you, before long, she's gonna come under fire for something. And so it's ironic to me also because Ms. Gates, she's the only one that's melanated color, melanated skin, a black woman, president of Harvard, one of the most esteemed colleges in the U.S., one of the most esteemed institutions in the U.S., with a black president at the helm. So I'm almost certain that may be one of the reasons why they are so hard on her, more so than others. To me, I feel like it's an underlying issue. It don't seem like what they're trying to pull out of them is just what's going on right now. So basically what I'm saying is it's like they're trying to drive home a point of something that's been going on globally. And so that's what brings me to this situation. Check this out.
Hamas starts in 1987 again, Jonathan said that accurately. They started in 1987 as a nationalist group. Their goal was the liberation of the entire land of Palestine. At some point, they got to a space where they wanted to also be involved in politics. So 1987 is a very different moment than 2005, 2006 when they ran in these elections, when they ran a part in these elections against Fatah. At that moment, their goal was still a free Palestine. That for them meant getting rid of what they call the Zionist entity. It did mean a certain kind of vision of freedom that did not include the state of Israel as a Jewish state, right? But Hamas, over time, was willing to have a unity government with the Palestinian Authority, with the Fatah in particular. They were willing to engage in diplomatic relations, and it's dishonest to suggest that they haven't been engaged in Israel, that we can't talk to them. The Gaza, if Israel wanted to blow up all of Hamas and all of Gaza, they could have already done that, right? But they've always worked with Hamas. They've always worked with them since 2006 to keep the perimeter steady because they don't want instability. They don't want 5 or 6 groups fighting, right? So they've always negotiated with Hamas. So it's sort of dishonest to say we just can't talk to them. I understand the concern that Hamas's vision of a solution for the political issue is different than Israel's solution for the political issue, is different than the other party's solution for the political issues. That's fine, but they're a democratically elected government, and they have a right as a democratically elected government to negotiate and to have a worldview, and Israel has a right to have theirs. But you can't undermine them as a government, even if we disagree with them. I might say that thing that happened on October 7th was an act of terrorism. Inexcusable. I would say that. I am saying that. But that does not mean that it's impossible to have a diplomatic or political solution to this problem. We cannot pretend that the only way to solve this issue is to just blow everything up and to just kill everybody.
Right. So it's almost like obscurity is unreal because I'm not trying to pick a side. You know, like I always tell you, my side is righteous. I'm about righteousness. I'm about unveiling the fake and exposing the real. You see it? That's the life I live. You know what I'm saying? That's the life I prefer. And that's what I'm doing. Like, I'm just trying to unveil some things that it's apparent that the higher ups, the powers that be, they're trying to cover it up. And it's something going on behind the scenes to where they're trying, and Elon Musk was the first one to really bring it to my attention, especially with his acquisition of Twitter, and when he exposed the X-Files. That's right. They turn around and rename Twitter X. Man, it's a lot of things that's happening strategically that we think that just happened by chance. Now, a lot of us aren't familiar with what's going on in Israel and Palestine, you know, Gaza, because a lot of the details are left out. And ironically, the people that control the media worldwide, you know, basically all the Israelis are the Jewish members of Israel. So that's another subject. I don't want to jump too far off subject, but I'm gonna just say, you know, let's just take it like this. If I got a situation, I got an opposition, I got an op out here, you know what I'm saying? We beef. Well, you know, people start questioning, what's going on? Why y'all beefing? And da-da-da-da. Well, this song, you know, ordinarily, you're gonna give your side of the story and you're gonna paint them to be the worst of the worst. So this is the reason why you need to go and do what you gotta do to them. Because you want people to pick a side. You want people to, you know, the people that's hearing you out, you want them to feel like you right for what you're gonna do or what you done did, and vice versa. Only thing is, let's just say your opposition don't have a fan club. Your opposition don't have partners or friends or, you know, a posse. They just are themselves, you know what I'm saying? So, you got a posse, you got a whole lot of so-called friends, and you out here, you telling everybody, and everybody like, yeah. Where does that leave where does that leave my op? Where does that leave my op? Excuse me, y'all. Where does that leave my op? It leaves him in a bad predicament. It leaves him out to dry. It leaves him looking like the light. And what I like to always reference these things to is like, I like to reference to sports and referees. And when you commit a foul, most of the time, especially with these flagrants, most of the time, the person that gets whistled for the foul is not the initiator. It's just that he gets caught. Because nobody sees the initial strike or blow or down low pinch or grab, pull, or tug, but they see the reaction. And they tend to victimize the initiator. So, like I said, I'm not trying to take any sides. I've been paying attention to the media and the verbiage, and that's what you have to be careful of. That's why you have to have your own spirit of discernment. And that's why you have to do your own due diligence. You got to go out here and research and stop relying on just turn on the TV, because this is the way people are manipulated all across the world through media broadcasts. When they are able to censor and to restrict certain things from being played and allow certain things to play more and more, the same way it was with the election and why Trump was saying that Biden sabotaged the election. It's because, and this is what Elon was exposing as well with social media, because social media is powerful nowadays. Like this is a new wave. Like 20 years ago, we wasn't used to this. And so, like I always tell y'all, the powers that be, they plan 20 to 25 to 25,000 years ahead, 2,500 years ahead, I'm sorry. And so a lot of things that's going on now, they already have orchestrated. And I also feel that way about what's going on in the Middle East. These people been knowing what's been going on in the Gaza Strip. It's just that little of that information gets out to the general public. All we get to hear is once Hamas has retaliated, because that's what it is. It's retaliation for years and years and years and years of oppression. And I keep hearing all these people jump to the aid of the Israelis. I just can't side with it, because something in my spirit tells me to have compassion for them all, because I don't like nobody dying, especially for just over what they fighting for over land. But I'm like this here, and I think most of you all are too. If a certain let's just say you inherited some land from a family member. Your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather. You inherited this land. And here you and all of your family members, your close related siblings or whoever. And it comes a time that this certain other group of people, they don't have nowhere to go. Nobody else will accept it. But here it is. We got this air property with all this land. Tell you what, we make room for y'all. Y'all come on over here. Got you, brother. Well, years go by. After you can move these people in and settle them into your land, they start inch by inch acquiring more and more and acquiring more and more. And before you know it, they have made peace with a lot of your enemies. Now they become, as the old saying goes, my enemy's enemy is my friend. And so now they got their weight up. And you, on the other hand, may be naive, you know what I'm saying? You really just, because you're giving person. You favor me. You feel like, I don't have to watch my back for these people. I don't need them a favor. Why would they stab me in the back? Why would they try to take my land, my entire piece of land, when I've given them a section? Well, it sounds quite ungrateful, right? But in a nutshell, that's basically what's going on over there on the Gaza Strip. These people own this land. This was their land prior to the Israelis and the Jewish people settling in their land. They opened the door to them. They let them in. The Jews had nowhere else to go. Even America was rejected. And so Palestinians allowed them to come in. And over time, just like the old saying, we say it in the hood, give a nigga an inch, what? He gonna try to take them out. And so that's what's basically happened. And now the Israelis have gotten so powerful. The Jewish have gotten so powerful because they got the money now. And that goes all the way back to the barter system and lending money. And I can go back further and actually show you why the Israelis feel the way they feel. Because they was kicked around. They had nowhere to go. And in the first place that they got to settle, now they want to take it all over. Because we don't want to never feel like we displaced again. We don't never want to feel like we dispossessed. So we're going to dispossess all these other people. And that's what kills me with this whole situation and all of these atrocities is the fact that the most powerful of the two has been through this or even worse in the past. So now they're inflicting pain and the same suffering on another group of people. And it disturbs me. And my feelings go out to Palestine because I feel so closely related to them when it comes down to situations and how you could be treated as 1/5 of a man, treated less than an animal. And that's the verbiage that they're actually using. If you listen, they calling these people animals. But what happened on October 7th? And it's like the whole world is still just on October 7th. But they ain't looking back for the past 75 years how these people been forced to live in a small, secluded area with very little resources at all. Not only that, these people get bombed and shelled and shot every day. They wake up to losing family members. I know people of Palestinian descent here in the U.S. been losing family members, they just resilient. And that's why I see the correlations with blacks. Because no matter what, we've been hung from trees. We've been drugged by horses and trucks and ripped apart and beaten with whips and chained and worked to the bone gristle. And it's like nobody else feels your pain. They just shrug it off. But the minute we reach a point that we can't take it no more and we blow up and start burning shit down, now everybody looking at us and what they call them? Animals. Look at those animals. Radicals. But no, we got to consider the pressures and the pains of other people. Consider the things that consider the atrocities that we are putting other people through that caused them to get to this point. Do you think these people are so suicidal that they would just do this to the third strongest or mightiest military in the world? Like they got the most technical military in the world. Do you think these people would just go do that? And another thing, it's like They done bled the lines between Hamas and Palestine. For one, all Palestinians don't agree with Hamas themselves. And it's because, just like right now, they've been considered a terror group, right? A terrorist. But the truth of the matter is, that's the only governing body of Gaza. So basically, it's the government of Gaza. But when you listen to American media, and you listen to these talk show hosts, they talking about Hamas as though Hamas is like the Taliban or ISIS. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not an original terror group. These are just the few people in this region that's willing to fight for it, that's willing to die for it, willing to kill for it. They didn't got to that point because they, for years, have been unheard. Nobody has done anything or made any sacrifices to relieve these people of the devilish acts against them. And it's obvious that Israel has the West on their side. And everybody feels that when they got the West on their side, they got the best on their side. So when you got your big brother behind you, you're going to act a little bit more tougher. And you're going to be willing to get out there a little bit more faster and do things that you wouldn't normally do with you by yourself. So that's what happened. They've been encouraged because look at us. Continue to fund them folks. Continue to send all these billions of dollars to Israel. The same way with Ukraine. And look at us. We don't have a dog in the hunt. We can't say nothing. They just send our tax dollars over there and say, hey, here, y'all need to keep going. Keep on going. You know what I'm saying? And see, this is my thing. Like, for one, it ain't no war, y'all. Do you know, Hamas, maybe 20,000, 30,000 members? So you mean to tell me you're going to wipe out almost 3 million people to try to take out a group of 20 or 30,000? And you're using all type of excuses as to why it's okay, it's legitimate for you to blow up schools and hospitals because you say that Hamas is a terrorist group and they use these type of storefronts to cover up, and underneath them, their camps and military bases. So you're going to wipe out all of these civilians to try to take out a few little ants at the bottom of the empire. Don't make no sense. Sad. And you see this all throughout history, the Western ideology, and these people that's doing it. But yet, the media wants us to feel compassionate and sorry for the Israelis. It's hard for me. I'm on the fence. Because I don't like taking sides with nobody when it comes down to killing and murdering and all that. I'm pro-life. You know what I'm saying? I'm a God. And I'm a creator. So it's nothing creative about destroying things that have been created by other gods. And allowed to be created by the Most High God. So it's a slap in the face to the Most High God, as well as the creator of that being and other creators that can look and say, man, what a devilish act to destroy such a beautiful creature. Have any of you all ever thought about the fact that it was a baby that was born on October the 6th or October the 9th or the 8th that ain't got nothing to do with Hamas? Wasn't around however many years ago it was when they created Hamas, when Hamas was put into power. Those folks ain't even been, the Palestinian people ain't even been able to select another governing body. And like I say, over half of the population in Gaza is 16 years old or less. Those people weren't even around when this group was formed. So they don't have no feelings for them, and they really don't have no words for them because they weren't a part of selecting them. But now they have to face the music. They have to be destroyed and sacrificed and killed, burned, shot because they only animals. Because there's one small group amongst that group that chose to fight back the powers that be. And now nobody want to say it, but there's a genocide taking place on the Gaza Strip right now and in the West Bank. It's just slick roundabout way. They're taking, small amounts of lives, small amounts of land, but over time, it's a proxy thing, y'all. They want that land. They want that land. We've been reading about it, hearing about this for years.
Sat by Rabbi Yisrael David Weiss. He's a spokesperson for the Orthodox Jewish anti-Zionist organization, Neturei Karta. Thank you for joining us. I guess, first of all, I've got lots of questions. So if you could summarize for us your feelings on what's going on in Gaza at the moment.
Well, with the help of the Almighty, I pray to the Almighty to bestow upon me His truth, His wisdom, that I may be worthy of conveying his message and sanctifying his name and bringing peace to the world, inshallah. It's not my feelings, it's the feelings of Jews around the world who are true to our religion, Judaism, a religion of 3,000 years. We hurt, we cry, we suffer, we pain with the people of Gaza beyond words what's happening to them. There's no way of expressing it in our frustration because it's to us to double Nakba. It is being done in the name by a movement that's 100-odd years, a political nationalist movement of non-religious Jews, Zionists, who are trying to transform my religion to nationalism and use the religion of subservience to God to cover for their creating a state, occupying another people, and by silencing anybody who dares to speak up as being anti-Semitic. This is abhorrent. It's totally not true. My religion is to serve God. My religion is not to kill or steal, not to occupy. And we're not even allowed to have a state since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago. And Jews held by this belief for 2,000 years strictly. And we lived with the Muslim people in peace for the 2,000 years. We lived in every Muslim and Arab country in peace and harmony. There's something to do with the religious conflict there.
I guess, Rabbi Weiss, given that then, what are your feelings on those in power in the state of Israel, in particular the right-wing factions there? What do you think of them?
We consider these sinners, criminals. They're using, again, maliciously, and some of them, because they've been conned into this belief, they're using the Jewish religion totally immorally, wrongly, because again, Judaism is to keep the Torah, to serve God, as we did for hundreds of years. To occupy, to steal, to create a state is expressly forbidden according to my Torah. All the rabbis around the world for 130 years since Zionism started spoke up in every way, in every style that they had, and declared that Zionism is sinful, is a criminal, and is totally unacceptable according to my religion. The chief rabbi of Palestine in 1947, before they made the state, pleaded with the United Nations. His name was Rabbi Dyshinsky. Now, when I say the chief rabbi, I mean nothing to do with the Zionists. Use the Star of David. They use the name Israel. They use all the trappings of my religion, and they made a rabbinate and chief rabbi. But we have a Jewish community with a rabbinate, Eda Charedis, God-fearing community, and the chief rabbi in 1947 was Rabbi Dyshinsky, of blessed memory, and he pleaded with the United Nations, which is in their documents. He said, we furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine, and since then, we've been demonstrating the tens and hundreds of thousands and being brutally beaten by the Zionists.
So given that, Rabbi Weiss, the US president isn't here today to say what he thought, but when he said, Joe Biden said, I'm a Zionist.
My father pointed out to me, I did not need to be a Jew to be a Zionist. For I am. Israel is essential to the security of Jews worldwide.
Well, how did that make you feel?
I've been living this bitter pill for my whole life. My father, of blessed memory, was a student, was a follower of one of the great rabbis in Europe who passed away before the Second World War, who fought tooth and nail this Zionist movement that started in Europe. And we know these are what the Zionists tell the world. Their narrative is that they're God's blessing to the world, the end of exile, what they call it, the beginning of redemption.
So he's misguided. The US president is misguided. He's listening to the wrong people.
100% either are the best. They're being misguided, and they mean well for the Jewish people. We're very thankful for the leaders of the world who want to help Jews. My grandparents were killed in Auschwitz. My father escaped the Nazis when they came to Hungary. But we appreciate people who want to do us good. But on the contrary, the support and the furtherance of the state of Israel is only causing, as you see, 75 years and more of bloodshed of the Palestinians. That's the mass slaughter that's happening now, and the Jews. 75 years of death and suffering. We live together, Jews and Muslims and Christians, together in Palestine and around the Muslim world in harmony. What changed? The only issue that changed is the introduction of this political Judaism, this ersatz Judaism called Zionism. They have created this quagmire. They are the ones who are the patrons, the ones who are the cause of endless rivers of blood of both Jews and Muslims and hate that's developed around the world. They are the personification of anti-Semitism that they are claiming and accusing others of.
Okay, well, I mean, they're not all here to defend themselves. You mentioned Auschwitz there. Something you've said in the past is that you said that Zionists use, and I quote you here, the Holocaust issue to their own benefit. 100%. Is that what you think is happening here in this war, in the defense of this war?
It's one link in a chain that they're using constantly since the creation of the state. They use the fact, the guilt of the world that was silenced that was silenced when my grandparents and others were being murdered, and people feel guilty and they want to support Jewish people. But what has happening is, so ironically, is that it's not only a good for the Jewish people, it is the greatest cancer for Jewish people, because first of all, as you see, we've been estranged from our Muslim neighbors around the world. All the Jewish communities that were living in Iraq, in Tunisia, in Egypt, they're all gone. And where did they go to? They disappeared because of Zionism. And the ones who are living in the Holy Land, first of all, they totally misconstrue what it means to be a Jew. A Jew means to serve God, to keep the Sabbath, keep the Ten Commandments, keep the kosher, all the laws, while Israel proudly announces they're a democracy. You're free of keeping the laws of the Torah. So you see the duplicity, the hypocrisy, and what it means a Jewish is a religion. How could you throw away God's commandments and then claim that you're doing God's will? And what God's will is here when you're murdering in the tens of thousands of people here. We can't be silent on this what's happening to the people of Gaza. And mind you, we really have to point out that when the Jews stood up, we're never militant. We never carry guns, our communities. We never carry knives. And boys and girls get arrested because we refuse to serve in the army. They get brutally beaten. This is already for 75 years. Children, old men. Because simply we're standing out on the streets of Jerusalem and saying, this is unacceptable. The occupation is not Judaism. And they don't want to hear that. And they brutally, this is the army for Israel.
I can
if
see
this would happen here in Turkey or in the United States, they would be on the plane, Netanyahu, screaming anti-Semitism. Yet they do this with impunity. How come?
I can understand the strength of your feeling. I suppose to move to a slightly more practical question then, you presumably then don't believe in a two-state solution.
No.
So what is the answer to this conflict? What do you see as being a good outcome from what's happening now?
Well, first of all, we have to be very clear. There is two distinct issues. For a doctor to prescribe a medicine, he has to diagnose the sickness. And if he falsely diagnoses the sickness, he can be sued for criminal negligence. The sickness here is not a difference of religion between Jews and Muslims. History attests. Anybody who's older than 75 will remember how we lived together in harmony. So it has nothing to do with the distinctly different religions that we practice together. We live together and practice a different religion. The issue is an introduction of a political movement that came from Europe on the heads and shoulders of the majority Muslims. The second community was Christians, and the third was Jewish, which was God-fearing community. And all three of them did not want this new type of Judaism that's going to rule, called Zionism.
So where do you see it going then? What should be the answer or the outcome of this conflict in Gaza? Let's look forward.
First, in order to come to a solution, the world first has to realize that they're futilely trying to come to a solution because they're trying to solve two religions that are fighting, which is not the question here. The issue is that the religions could get along together. Something came along. It's like you're putting a bandage on a hemorrhaging wound. They have to understand that Zionism is the problem. What is the solution? I mean, now that if you understand the sickness, anybody can come along and I think the most practical and logical thing is to remove this, just like apartheid was removed. It wasn't a problem between blacks and whites. It was this concept that the blacks are second-class citizens and they have to be oppressed. The same thing here. If you remove this oppression of the Palestinians, if you remove this selfish political game that they want to take over the land, then we can live together, Jews and Muslims, and we've had his. Why? What's the problem of coexisting? It's just the implementing of a forceful occupation of a movement that's calling themselves Jewish. Remove that, we can have a fine Judaism that we had for thousands of years, practicing our religions properly and living together with the Muslims who love us. We live together, they protected us, and we, in fact, as Jews, we have to show gratitude, good to us. It was the Muslim countries that gave us a home, and we have to show gratitude to that. It's part of the Nakba, the vilification of people who did good to us.
And there'll never be peace in Israel. There'll never be peace. Because you're fighting for stolen land. The same way I feel here in America. There'll never be peace in this land. Because you give to everybody but those that deserve it. Give to everybody but those that originally owned it. So basically, we still, living a lie. And these are acts. These are war crimes. These are acts against humanity. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is dehumanizing. Y'all stop hearing one side of everything just because, like I say, I'm able to give you all the information. I'm able to, you know what I'm saying? I got more listening ears and mouths that can duplicate and republicize, speak on it more But that don't make me right. Just because more people speaking in my favor don't make me right. Because more than likely, the person that you ain't hearing nothing from, they probably got more of a fight for righteousness in them. You know what I'm saying? Because people that's right, they don't tend to have to argue or try to prove their points. You know what I'm saying? We believe that truth will speak for us. You know what I'm saying? Truth will reveal his hand eventually when it's deemed most necessary. Anyway, I just wanted to speak on this issue because I know it's a lot of us that don't really know what's going on. So if it's any of y'all that's out there that's questioning this stuff, you know what I'm saying, and haven't gotten a greater understanding from this video that I'm sharing with you all, then I want y'all to hit the like button first. Subscribe to my channel because I'm going to continue to bring y'all nothing but the best. I'm going to continue to provide y'all with all the updated information I can, and I'm going to continue to dive deeper and delve into this thing so we all can gain a better understanding of what's really truly going on and how it's going to affect us in the future. Because just because it's going on over there today don't mean it won't be in our backyard tomorrow. And not only that, there's going to be a lot of, and we already seen it with the protests. So there's a lot of people on both sides right here in the United States. So I'm not telling you all to pick a side. I'm just telling y'all to look at things from both sides. Because like I always say, there's three sides to every story. There's your side, my side, and there's the middle ground. I like to call it the flip side. Anyway, I love you all. I hope that each and every one of you all have a blessed day. Yeah, hit that like button. If you ain't hit that like button yet, go ahead and hit that like button. We got to get these messages out there. And the only way we're going to do it is for them to see that you into it. Hit the like button. I need that. I need y'all to continue to share this message. Share it digitally, as well as through word of mouth. We got to know who we got to pray for, and we got to know who's going to stand and pray with us. It's time out for all this just going with the mob, you know what I'm saying? Because you'll end up, on the wrong side of things, man. God ain't going to reward us for commending people in their wrong, and they dirt, they hate. And just because it's so far away from here, don't mean it's so far away from you. You see, they already bringing in a lot of those immigrants to Chicago and New York. Don't think that it's impossible for someday to come when they declare martial law that they can't round us all up and ship us all off. That's why it's important to continue to stand together and let them know we ain't gonna just go like that. You know what I'm saying? And it ain't even about just fight with your heads. We gotta be smart. We gotta be strategic. It's time for us to weaponize our intelligence, to protect our community, to protect ourselves, our children. We fighting wars right here in the United States. Yeah. We fighting wars over here. No justice, no peace. Black people ain't got no justice. We ain't got justice yet. We still trying to get reparations. We still trying to get reparations. But it's on the way. It is on the way. So y'all continue to pray. Y'all continue to stay up, stay hopeful. Don't allow none of this stuff to distract you or to destroy your peace. Because if you listen to the Palestinians, no matter what, you can see one with an arm blowed off, legs, kids, severed in half. They still saying, to God be the glory. Basically, God got us. And that's faith, man. That's the faith that I want to have. I'm just telling you, to the day I go out, I'm still leaning, depending on the Most High. Then, I'm not saying that they are the most righteous people. But I'm saying, and a lot of the reasoning why a lot of the hate for them is because they are of Muslim descent. Most of these people are Muslims. You do have some Christians, a small amount of Christians in Gaza or Israel and Jerusalem, of course. But for the majority of these people, they're Muslims. And you already know, most of the Western world hates the Muslims. They want to do anything they can to eradicate them. And what's going on right now, Netanyahu and how he got his dogs out there sniffing and turning over every leaf they can and using Hamas as an excuse to destroy the entire Gaza Strip, to destroy all the, basically, they gonna level the Gaza Strip. They gonna level Gaza Strip. And all of the other, they blowing up refugee camps. They blowing up hospitals. What that tell you? We don't want y'all to have. They already was limiting their water supply and tainting their water. Them people ain't had, they say 95% of the water over there is tainted. They say the Gaza Strip been deemed unlivable 20 years ago. And the thing about it is, every time you have reporters or people that's like inside, they tend to shut them up or kill them, throw them in prison, exile. Because it's obvious that they're not trying to let this information get out. Like, how can they let the information get out? They don't have access to the internet, they don't have electricity, they don't have water, they don't have nothing. They cut off from the rest of the world. And I got compassion for that because I know how it feels to be isolated. Not to that extreme, but I can see how that could happen again. I can see how that could happen to us, my people. And so, like I said, I don't condone violence. A baby is a baby. Nobody should lose, nobody should have to lose their life for this unnecessary bullshit. But I want to also say that right is right and wrong is wrong. And when one does wrong, is the only way to make it right is for them to reverse their actions. But for the other side to in turn do exactly what the other side they say or claim the other side did to them, allegedly, tit for tat, ain't gonna win nothing, ain't gonna win jack. There's gonna be a lot of lives and bloodshed. The same thing that has happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. Waste of resources and human lives. Anyway, I'm gonna leave y'all with that. I love y'all. Y'all stay up, stay humble, stay good people. I'm determined Black Man John Jay. Until the next time, I'm out. One.
I can say, well, Hamas can say, well, we didn't have to play by the rules because Israel's had us under illegal occupation since 1967. We've been under siege since 2006-7. We've been literally since 1948 kicked out of our homes. All the violations of international law. The right to return is international law. Palestinians can't go back to their homes. They were ethnically cleansed in 1948 in the Nakba, right? And somebody in the Israeli Knesset, which is basically Congress, said we want to have another Nakba right now. So that's a violation of international law. The targeting of civilians, the refusal to provide certain supplies as an occupying power is a violation of international law. Right now, collectively punishing all Palestinians for the act of Hamas is a gross violation of international law and rules of war. Forced transfer of people from one place to another, expulsion, is a violation of the rules of war. And even Jonathan is saying they want to have a humanitarian corridor into Egypt. That's out of their country. That is another Nakba. That's exactly what happened now. You got refugees before. The plan is to put them out. It's not to bring them back. So yeah, the idea to say that, well, yeah, Israel shouldn't play by the rules because Hamas doesn't. Well, if you play that game, the original rule breaker is Israel by international law and by all historical standards. So they don't play that game. But I don't think we should play that game. I think at all moments we should do the most ethical, the most just, the most fair, the most humane thing that is possible. And that right now is a ceasefire. That right now is a return of all hostages. I'm talking to Hamas now, right? A return of all hostages from Hamas. It's stopping all violence. Right? And it's coming up with a political solution that allows Palestinians to stay in their home. It is not yelling out, as members of the Israeli government have said, we're going to shrink the size of Gaza because you can't start a war with Israel and leave with the same amount of land that you started with. Taking land by force is a violation of international law. Occupying land since 1967, violation, right? I mean, everything here is a violation. 18 human rights organizations, before all this started, agreed, including Israeli human rights organizations like B'Tselem, agreed that Israel is an apartheid state. And it's been an apartheid state. So somehow the global community standing up and being outraged at what happened in Israel, that makes sense to me. But what doesn't make sense to me is how we weren't outraged the day before when these things were happening to Palestinian people. And for the last 75 years, they've been happening to Palestinian people. And it doesn't make sense to me why right now we're not equally disgusted that over 700, at this point, I think it's even 800 Palestinian children have been killed in the last week. We changed the whole world for Ukraine. And Russia killed about 450 of those children over the course of a whole year. Is the everyday people of Gaza, I don't speak for them. I don't want to say whether they support Hamas or not, right? What I know is they want to be free. And they know that the other party, Fatah, has basically caved. They know the Palestinian Authority doesn't represent their interests. They don't have a mandate either. And so it's very difficult to know what Palestinian people want. Let them have free and fair elections, and then we can find out what they want. But in terms of the Palestinian people in general, they don't just live in Gaza. They live in the West Bank. They live in cities like Ramallah and Bethlehem. They live in these cities, and they are under military occupation. What they did, and Jonathan talked about wanting a two-state solution. And again, there are lots of people who want a two-state solution. I don't oppose a two-state solution philosophically. But what they've effectively done since those Oslo Accords of 1993 is turn Gaza into a cage and the West Bank into 228 separate ghettos. So the Palestinian people don't have unity. They're ruled by different parties. Area A, they're ruled by Palestinians. Area B, it's coordinated with Israel. And Area C is all Israeli control. So even the part where they're supposed to be free, they're not. And Oslo was supposed to be an opportunity to work toward a two-state solution. But over the time, as they're negotiating, The area is getting smaller. Palestinian freedom is getting smaller. Settlements are growing. I think I used this example before. It's like if you and I are arguing over how to divide a pizza, and as we argue over which way to split it, you keep eating slices, right? At some point, there's nothing left to divide. And we can say, well, now there's 2 slices left. Well, let's split it, Mark. Well, I'd be like, fuck you, right? Like, it's 2 left. And that's basically what is happening right now in Palestine. And so Palestinian people are saying, look, we've been waiting. We negotiated with Oslo, and it was a farce, what Noda Addakat calls a sovereignty trap. We tried to march and protest. They had the Great March of Return in Gaza up to the undefined border of Israel. And from 500 meters away, Israeli snipers were shooting down people, picking them off like birds. They marched. They said, well, tell your story through media. My colleague at Al Jazeera, Shireen Abu Akleh, they killed her with a press jacket on. Damn. With no justice. They acknowledged. First they said Palestinian killed her. Then they said, okay, we did it. Then they said it's an accident. Is there any justice? No. So, just like black folk here, your march, they say it's wrong. Your protest, you say it's wrong. Your boycott, the BDS movement, they tried to criminalize, right? Which is a boycott, divestment, and sanction movement called by civil society Palestinian people saying, look, we got to do something different. So every possible strategy has been met with resistance, has been met with criminalization, has been met with violence. And so when I see these awful events that, again, are inexcusable, they don't come from nowhere. They don't come from day one being October 7th. They come from day one, not even being 1948, really day one being the late 19th century, late 19th century, when we started to see Palestinian land being settler colonized. I don't want to celebrate or romanticize the killing of civilians. And so I didn't like that. Standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people as they resist is nothing wrong with that. And as a nascent sovereign, as a young emerging sovereign state, Hamas has the right to resist military occupation. And let's be very clear. Palestinians have the legal right, not just the natural right, but the legal right to resist. They can use violence to resist. They're under military occupation. It is not illegal. And when you're under illegal military occupation, when you're in a military occupation, when you're in a legal occupation, when you're, it's a daily form of violence that legally you can defend yourself. But what you can't do is kill civilians. And so when I see people, if I see somebody, whether it's BLM or anybody else, romanticizing the killing of civilians, I say no. I say that's wrong. I say that doesn't help our cause. But I don't want to pretend that the only strategy that black folk have, or the only strategy that Palestinians have, or the only strategy that any people have is nonviolence. This idea that Palestinians are supposed to just sit there as they get beaten and shot and killed is ridiculous. No disrespect to the New Black Panther Party, but there's about 12 people in the New Black Panther Party. But if you were to watch Fox News, you would think that all the people at all the people in Ferguson marching, and all the people in Minnesota marching, that it was these 12 people that said the craziest, wildest stuff were the representatives of all black people. They always take a one slice of a people and tell that and make that the whole story. They pull at the threads that are easiest to pull at. So that becomes part of the reason. The other part of the reason is we've never represented the Middle East or Africa in ways that show their humanity. We've always shown them as uncivilized, as violent, as unprepared for democracy. And that's how you end up here in the first place. But we need to tell those stories. That's our job. That's our job, to tell the story of the occupation, tell the story of suffering, to tell the story of misery. Because if we don't do that, then we're complicit. That's why when those 18 human rights organizations stood up and said Israel is an apartheid state, that there are different rights given to some folk versus other folk based on who they are. That is the definition of apartheid. It doesn't have to look just like South Africa. It has to be based on a system of racialized hierarchy or other forms of hierarchy. And it is. So when those nations came out and said that, people started paying attention. It's in many ways frustrating for me because I feel like we were just starting to turn a corner where people were noticing the injustices in Palestine. People were starting to speak out against what was happening. People were starting to say, wait a minute, Israel also has to do something. Political candidates were running, like Bernie Sanders is saying, look, we can't give unconditional aid to anybody, but not even Israel. Israel has to not have human rights violations for us to keep giving them our money. This is where the conversation was turning. In this moment, the Palestinian National Authority became the ruling government or the ruling authority and representative of the Palestinian people. This was part of the Oslo Accords, which was an attempt to create a two-state solution. And so they said, okay, the PLO is working, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, who they used to call terrorists, right? They said, you know what? We'll recognize them as the representatives of the Palestinian people, and then we're going to have elections, and parties can run. Fatah is one of the parties, right? And they're the party that rules in the West Bank. That's the West Bank of the Jordan River. That's all the land that was occupied after the 1967 war. That's them. And then Gaza had elections. And Fatah ran there too. They did not win. They lost by a fairly slim margin. The elections were contested, and at some point, but Hamas won. And so then what you saw is, what you wanted to see was a unity government. That didn't happen. Part of why the unity government didn't happen was the US and Israel undermined it. But at the end of the day, you now have Hamas running this part of Palestine, and you have another party running, Fatah running the other part of Palestine. And that is why you have some challenges. But what's interesting is, when we're fighting over Jerusalem as a global community, Muslims, Christians, when we're fighting over Jerusalem, we're talking about Jerusalem, we're talking about the status of Jerusalem. That doesn't have anything to do with Hamas. That has to do with Mahmoud Abbas. That has to do with this party in the West Bank. When we're talking about an apartheid wall being built throughout the West Bank, when we're talking about the treatment of people in Ramallah, when we're talking about a pogrom committed in the West Bank in a Palestinian village by Israeli military general standards, all that ain't got nothing to do with Hamas. Hamas is like, they become almost like a boogeyman that we can talk about when we should be talking about all these other issues. There are legitimate Palestinian representatives who they also have refused to meet with. There are legitimate negotiations that could happen that they've also refused to have. So Hamas, in some ways, is saying, look, the rest of our leadership is sold out. We're going to hold the line here. Again, it doesn't mean I agree with their tactics, but again, it didn't start from nowhere. Part of why Hamas has some of the admiration of the people is because they're the only people who haven't capitulated. The problem is they say Hamas is everywhere. They say Hamas is everywhere and they have tunnels everywhere. So then when you blow up a school, that school is filled with children. And they say, well, yeah, but Hamas was in there. The narrative is constructed as if Palestinian people stand in front of their babies with guns and force you to kill both of them, right? That's the narrative, right? History and intelligence reports don't necessarily suggest that oftentimes what is seen as a military target often is just a civilian target. I mean, one of the classic examples historically is the bombing of the King David Hotel. And they say, oh, it was a British military target that Israeli terrorists blew up. Right? Turns out it wasn't. In historians, it wasn't a military target. There were civilians in there. Right? These are the things that happen. Schools are getting bombed. Hospitals are getting bombed. Homes are getting leveled. I spoke to a woman whose entire family, 11 people in that house, were killed when the apartment was leveled last week. And none of them were military. None of them were members of Hamas. But this idea of saying, well, we had to blow it up because Hamas, basically saying Hamas stands in civilian areas and forces us to kill everybody. But there's no evidence of that. But again, international law doesn't say you can just do that. You can't just arbitrarily do that. And you can't move 1.1 million people to the south in 24 hours. And at the same time that you shoot down the corridor to get them there, and you're shooting at transport vehicles, they transport people from the north to the south. If all that is happening, you can't in good faith say that we gave everybody a warning. As if all the civilians were going to leave to the south and Hamas was going to be standing up in the north, like, hey, here we are, come get us, right? Like, that's not realistic. It's not honest. And we have to be honest about that. And honestly, Antonio Guterres, the head of the UN, other nations are beginning to say that. They're saying, look, this is disproportionate force. This is too much. You can't blow up all the hospitals. You have to give people food. You have to give people electricity. And the fact that we're sitting here right now having a fight over whether or not Palestinians can get food, clothing, shelter, electricity, fuel is absurd. Thousands of Palestinians have been killed, and we're pretending like it's just okay. And it's not.
Yeah, I wonder about that too. Like, why do people have to be pro-Israel or pro-Palestine? Like, I'm pro, I don't want to see kids get killed. I'm pro, I don't want to see innocent civilians get killed. I'm anti-war. Like, why do people have to pick this side? Like, I don't understand. Like,
I'll tell you why. At this moment, we can all say we don't want violence. I agree. You don't even have to know about the issue and be like, look, I just don't want to see anybody die. That's where I'm at this moment. I don't want to see another Israeli child dead. I don't want to see another Palestinian child dead. I don't want to see anybody die. Not just children, adults. I don't want nobody to die. But the problem is, if you say that you are pro-Israel as it is currently constituted, then you are saying that you are in support of a government that is systematically colonizing people, that is systematically displacing people, that is systematically stealing people's land, that is systematically ethnically cleansing people, as we see in Gaza right now. If those people leave Gaza and can't come back, they've been ethnically cleansed, right?
And you say you pro-Palestine, then they'll say you pro-Hamas.
Here's the difference. If I say I'm pro-Hamas, I'm saying I'm pro-Hamas. Right? I can be pro-Palestinian and support Palestinian self-determination and still disagree with Hamas. The problem is Israel as it is constructed, Israel as it is defined, Israel by its own definition is not a state of all of its citizens. By virtue of being a Jewish state, and by virtue of giving people different rights based on whether or not they are Jewish, by virtue of the fact that Palestinians have different rights and privileges, even those who are citizens of Israel. Arab citizens of Israel have different rights and rules, and they'll say that's a lie. There are Palestinians in our Knesset, there are Palestinian members in the Supreme Court, Palestinians have the exact same rights. There are about 60 laws on the books that show a difference, either facially or in practice, in terms of how people get treated based on whether or not they are Arab or not, even for Arab citizens of Israel. Right now, people in the West Bank don't have rights and freedoms. So the way Israel is constructed, it is by definition operating against the interests of Palestinian people. That's the difference. It would be like saying, I'm not anti-Indian, I'm just pro-United States. That'd be a hell of a thing to tell a Native American, right? Because the United States, by definition, by its construction, is created in a way that stomps on the rights of Native Americans here. So I can't say to someone, I can't look a Native American in the eye and say, well, I don't pick a side. I'm neutral on this, right? I like Native Americans and I love what America created. Like, nah, bro, you got to pick one on that, right? And so it doesn't mean though that I have to hate Israelis or that I have to hate Jewish people. I don't hate either. I want everyone to live in peace, safety, dignity, self-determination, and justice. And that's important to be said.
I guess that's why I don't like conflating the two, Hamas and Palestinians, because Hamas charter literally does say they want to destroy Israel and kill Jewish people.
That was their charter, and I think that we can have an opposition to Hamas's charter. I think we can have an opposition to Hamas all the way and still support the Palestinian people. Again, Hamas is a government and an organization. They're not the Palestinian people, right?
I think that's what the confusion is.
But and I think we can have a disagreement with the Israeli government, right? And I could say, hey, there are Israelis, there's Zionists, there are Jewish people here who say, look, I don't agree with the Israeli government, but I disagree with the government, but I support the government's right to exist. I hear you. What I'm saying is that the Jewish state as it's constructed right now, Israel as it's constructed right now, and as it was designed since 1948, was constructed in a way that depended upon the ethnic cleansing of Palestinian people, the settler colonizing of Palestinian people, and the continued dispossession of Palestinian people. And so that's the difference. This isn't about whether I agree with the government or not. Everybody has governments. Israel shouldn't be held to a higher standard or a lower standard. Israel should be held to the same standard as all governments. You can critique them, you can agree with them, you can support them, you can resist them, you can do all that stuff. I'm not against that. But I'm saying right now, Palestinian people have been dispossessed. They have been made stateless. They have been made refugees in their own home, and they've been made refugees around the world. And it's only getting worse. And so what we have to do right now is not just ask, how can we stop this violence? Which we should. I hope the violence stops tomorrow. But if we go back to the way we were 2 weeks ago, that also is an act of gross of irresponsibility and really violence on our part, because Palestinians are getting treated like animals every single day.
Couple might say, well, why are you so passionate about this? What, because you've been passionate about this for a long time now. So if somebody asks, well, why is Malcolm Hill so passionate? What would you tell them?
A couple of reasons. As an American citizen, my tax dollars go to it. I don't make as much money as y'all, but I pay a significant amount of taxes. So I feel like I'm even more culpable. My money goes to funding this occupation. I'm responsible for it as an American citizen. As a black person, I believe in justice everywhere. The week before I was grilling the Israeli minister and the Hamas minister, I was grilling the minister of Azerbaijan because I'm worried about what's happening to people there, right? So it's not just Israel. Israel shouldn't be isolated. We should be focused on injustice everywhere. But the reason in particular why this issue comes to me is, one, as somebody who studies the Middle East, it's a fascinating issue to me, but also we don't give everybody $4 billion a year. You know what I mean? I might be pissed off at what's going on in Uzbekistan, but we don't put that much money in Uzbeki wallets. Right? So I think that's how you say it. So that's part of it as well. Also, there's a long history of solidarity of Palestinian people with black folks. Some people, they don't care about us. That's not true. Now, there's some stuff we got to work out, but Malcolm X cared about this issue. Malcolm X is my hero. So when Malcolm X cared about this issue, when he wrote a piece on this in the Egyptian Gazette called Zionist Logic, I cared. In the fall of '64, I cared because Malcolm cared. Malcolm, and everybody here, go back and listen to Message to the Grassroots, when Malcolm is talking about what a revolution looks like. And he was talking about us being connected globally, right? That's why I care about this issue. The Black Panthers cared about this issue. SNCC cared about this issue in the summer of '67. There's a lot of people, black freedom fighters, who we admire. People say, be like Malcolm, be like Assad. People want to march and be like Huey. People want to be like Angela. They all cared about Palestine.
Any kind of hate.
There's a lot of talk that sounds very much like it.
No, I think that the guilt complex of the American white man is so profound until when you begin to analyze the real condition of the black man in America, instead of the American white man eliminating the causes that create that condition, he tries to cover it up by accusing his accusers of teaching hate. But actually, they're just exposing him for being responsible for what exists. I don't in any way encourage black people to go out and initiate acts of aggression indiscriminately against whites. But I do believe that the black man in the United States, and any human being, anywhere, is well within his right to do whatever is necessary, by any means necessary, to protect his life and property, especially in a country where the federal government itself has proven that it is either unable or unwilling to protect the lives and property of those human beings.
As I said to Mr. Sigmund in Geneva and others, that we carefully define what we mean by secure borders. We do not mean that Israel has the right to retain the territories they conquered from the Arab world, like the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights, the right to retain. That we carefully define what we mean by secure borders. We do not mean that Israel has the right to retain the territories they conquered from the Arab world, like the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights, and the West Bank. We don't agree with that. Those territories should be returned to the Arab people.